City already 6 points off the top. United have had just one win in their early season. That was against Burnley, and it was dramatic and it was late. They've already gone out of the Carabao Cup. These are two sides, really, that haven't had great starts to the season. But United come in ahead of them in the table, Crook, and that must fill you with optimism.
Well, it doesn't happen very often in recent seasons. Do you know what does fill me with optimism, actually? And you'll have the stats here. The record of the away team in this fixture, be it at Old Trafford or at the Etihad, the home team don't often win the Manchester derby. And obviously, United staged a smash and grab raid last season. You were there alongside me when Amad Diallo scored that late winner. So I think United have got a chance. And also, I look at their start to the season. The Grimsby game was absolutely terrible. We can all agree on that. But you look at the other performances, pretty good against Arsenal, 20-odd shots on goal, obviously lost 1-0. Fulham, for the first half an hour, they looked like they were going to blow them away. Then it all became a little bit stodgy, I'll admit that. Burnley could have been 4 or 5 up by half-time. They've had something like 84 shots, United, in their first 4 games. Actually, Scott's already listed, where Forest come out highly in terms of the early season stats. United are leading quite a lot of those early season stats, obviously without converting those chances into goals. So I'm not as pessimistic as I would usually be going into this derby, but the last time City lost 3 in a row, or 3 of their first 4 Premier League games, was when Alan Ball was manager. They were relegated back in 95-96. United won the double that year, by the way.
Oh, and that seems a long way off now. Just having a look at your statistic and the away team winning. I mean, it hasn't been something that's happened a lot recently. It did happen last year.
No, I said the home team don't often win.
All right, calm down. I was just about to... Well, that's not necessarily true either, is it? Manchester City beat Manchester United in March 2024. They also beat them in June 2023 in the FA Cup final. That was the FA Cup final. That wasn't home. But the 6-3 the other year as well, that was also a Manchester City victory at home. And the game in March 2022 when they beat you 4-1 at home. But apart from that, you're right, the home team don't win very often. But there was a spell in the early 2020s where it was the away team that were coming off the better. Go back to that League Cup tie between the two. The game in the semi-final, I think it was, where they sort of exchanged away wins. And then there was 2-3 Premier League games where the same sort of thing happened as well. So it has been a thing. I always get the feeling with this fixture that what it is that the team that's on top and is the sort of the one with the chest pumped out is the one that always gets a bloody nose in it. So when Manchester United are at their pomp, they were there for the taking. It was City's big cup final, so they would always turn up against Manchester United and do something special. Not every year, but occasionally it would cause a stir. And I think that's flipped reverse since Manchester City have become almost the dominant force on the landscape, footballing-wise. Anyway, it's now Manchester United's sort of opportunity to reassert a little bit of authority. And they do turn up for the big games. They were very good against Arsenal, Scott, in the match earlier in the season, the first game of the season. They should have really have won that match. And I think they'll turn up for this one. This is a Manchester City defence that can be breached.
Yeah, what's the most likely or least likely? United to win the double or City to go down? That's a great stat, I've got to say. Look, I was at the Brighton game, and if you talk about City, look, the empire has fallen. The emperor has stayed, and he's now trying to rebuild another empire. It takes time, and we sort of thought after that Wolves game, although I did sort of say with respect it is Wolves, and I predicted them to go down, that suddenly they're back. We've had the conversation about the Club World Cup, how good they were in Juventus, then what happened against Al Hilal. They are vulnerable on the counter-attack. I was at that game at Brighton, and they dominated Brighton in the first half. Erling Haaland scored, but should have scored 3 or 4. Honestly, he should have had a hat-trick by half-time. And, no, I love Erling Haaland, and you can't knock him in terms of his numbers. But you talk about Nicholas Jackson, and I don't want to put them as necessarily right next to each other, but Nicholas Jackson creates a lot of chances for himself, but he misses a lot. The moment he's more clinical, I'm telling you, watch out. And that may well happen in the next couple of years. Erling Haaland's the same. He should have put City to bed. That should have been it. And yet Brighton came back and showed the vulnerability that City still have. So I agree with Crookie, actually. There have been 30 minutes here, 45 minutes here, 70 minutes there with Manchester United in the performance. And the stats show, you can see what Ruben Amorim is what he's trying to do. It's just, can they keep it up? And then the pressure of the shirt as well. But with this particular fixture, it is the proverbial form goes out the window, because honestly, you just don't know what's going to happen. I remember that game not that long ago where City were dominating, winning 1-0. What happens? Amad Diallo steps up, 2 last-minute goals, and United somehow win. I tell you what, sit back, watch it, because even after 60 minutes, if it's not that interesting, things will happen towards the end.
Absolutely. Where's it going wrong for Manchester City, though? Because all of last season, it was down to the fact that it was Rodri who was the problem. His absence, he wasn't there. He's back now, along with a raft of brand new players. We've had 2 active transfer windows for Manchester City, 3 if you include that little one just before the Club World Cup. But Pep told us 2 weeks ago that this is not a team in transition. It does look like that, though, doesn't it, Crook?
It does. And he also told me at Fulham at the end of last season that things would be much better this season. And it hasn't really worked out that way. Again, you have to look at the performance against Brighton in the first half that Scott has alluded to. And they could have been out of sight. The fact they weren't tells me they've lost a little bit of ruthlessness. And I go back to comments that I think a couple of City players have made to you, that when they concede a goal, almost panic sets in and they think they're going to concede again. Of course, that's what happened against Brighton. But I look at the team. Matheus Nunes is not a right back. Kusanov, I think, is still some way shy of being someone you can rely upon week in, week out in the Premier League. Rodri is clearly not up to full capacity yet. So the midfield is still an issue. And now they've lost Omar Marmoush to injury as well. I look at City's lineup compared to Liverpool and even Arsenal, and it just doesn't strike fear into the opposition. So at the moment, I think they're a long way behind those other 2 title contenders. I don't think the recruitment's been good enough.
Yeah, well, the hype sort of cooled on Reinders, didn't it, after a good start? I think that's a little bit unfair because I think he'll be a good player for them. But Cherky's out injured too. John Stones picked up an injury in the international break too. So I suppose there's a little bit of sort of hesitation from Pep Guardiola about how he puts together this team for the weekend. Also, I suppose there'll be a little bit of a question mark as to who he plays in goal, because you've got a situation here where you've signed James Trafford, you've put your faith in him from the start of the season, and he did make a mistake against Tottenham, but apart from that, he's been very good. And down at Brighton the other week, he made some brilliant saves, I've got to say. Absolutely superb. Now they've signed Donnarumma. Now, he obviously scored, he's conceded 4 goals in midweek to Israel. He's a different type of goalkeeper, great shot stopper, but not necessarily brilliant with his feet. So what do you do here, Scott? Do you go, well, we brought in this senior goalkeeper, we're just going to stick him straight in? Or do you keep faith with James Trafford and an inaugural Manchester derby?
I don't know what the wages are. Now, again, listening to Crookie over the summer, that United didn't go in for him. Was it because of the wages, Crookie?
Yeah, $500,000 a week.
Which, you know, I mean, that's great work if you can get it. And I understand why a lot of clubs don't want to pay that. But that's the one position that United did need. And obviously with Onana going, it's even more obvious. It's not actually the one position City did need, because I don't get it. I just don't get it. I don't get why you'd get James Trafford. And I know it's probably just because it's popped up, Donnarumma, when they weren't expecting it. But he isn't your typical Pep goalkeeper. You know, when I covered the Spanish football back in the day, how are they going to do it? They're going to do it. They're going to have one keeper for the Premier League. They're going to have one keeper for the Cups. You're interested to see what they do with the Champions League, but certainly with the domestic cups. But Scott,
you say he popped up. Like, Scott Minto became available, and the first thing we did was like, you know, like, let's get him on the podcast. But with all due respect, Scott, you're not earning £500,000 a week. That would be quite some investment.
I'm not taking a cut.
It's not like a bargain opportunity, is it? I mean, they're seriously paying for it. I don't think he's earning $500,000 a week, by the way. I don't think Manchester City would be able to justify that on the wage bill. But he's obviously getting a significant amount of money. And if you're paying someone that significant amount of money, I don't care who you are, you're going to be expected to play him, aren't you?
Yeah. But it's a case of when. I mean, he only arrived for training, I think, yesterday, because he actually undertook his medical while on international duty with Italy. So I kind of feel like James Trafford will keep his place for this game. But that in itself brings its own pressure, because he's going to know that the spectre of Donnarumma is looming over him. I think it's equally interesting who starts in goal for United. Thank heavens they've managed to find someone to take Andre Onana, and the last of the sort of Eric Ten Hag deadbeats is off the wage bill. But do they stick with Altay, who looks like he's going to concede every time a team put a cross in the box, or do they chuck Senny Lemons straight into the starting 11? He's clearly going to be the number one, but again, huge pressure on young shoulders.
Just on James Trafford, he has no other choice than to look at this as, and I believe for the reasons that Crookie gave, that while Donnarumma will be seen to be the number one, James Trafford will play in this particular game. If he has a blinder and City win, then he's got the shirt. And I genuinely believe that would happen. You're kicking the can down the road, but that's the only way that he needs to look at it. And in terms of pressure, whether you're a United keeper or a City keeper, you're at one of the biggest clubs in the world. You have to be able to deal with that pressure. You know, if I have a bad game, I'm going to get dropped. And if you can't deal with it, you shouldn't be at one of the biggest clubs in the world. So, yeah, I'm really surprised that United didn't go in for Donnarumma. That fit would have been better. But I would be surprised if either the two goalkeepers suddenly come in such a big game straight after the international break.
I think James is quite a confident character, actually, and I think he does deal with the pressure really well. He obviously got quite a bit of criticism in the Premier League when he was at Burnley because he was slight and he was getting sort of out-muscled occasionally, but he bounced back from that brilliantly, was the best player in the Championship last season, probably, and he's earned himself a move to Manchester City, back to Manchester City after good performances. He was excellent for the England under-21s when they won the tournament. In fact, they won the tournament twice, but the first time they won it, he was the star of the show, and now he's been called up into the England senior team. There's obviously a lot of thoughts amongst those who know better than we do that he is a very, very, very good goalkeeper. And I think going forward, he's a young man. He will be probably England's next goalkeeper. But like you said, maybe he uses this as a learning opportunity off Gianluigi Donnarumma as well. You know, he gets to work with that guy every single day, and he's one of the best goalkeepers around. The problem is that Donnarumma isn't that old for a goalkeeper, is he? So how long is he going to be around for? Let's talk a little bit about the other end of the pitch and goals, because certainly both teams need them. Erling Haaland, I suppose Manchester City will hope he didn't use them all up against Moldova. Because he warmed up nicely with 5 goals in an 11-1 victory for Norway. Yes, 11-1. It's one of those things where you have to write at the bottom of the video printer. But Benjamin Šeško, is he going to start, though? Because at the other end, Manchester United need goals too, Crookster.
It's an interesting one. I mean, a bit like Gyökeres, really. He's not looked fully sharp since he came in. Obviously, he's taken a lot of stick for being the 10th penalty taker in that cup defeat against Grimsby. I think a lot of United fans are surprised that he's not been pitched straight in, having spent so much money on a new number 9. Maybe he might get his chance this weekend because we don't know if Mateus Cunha is going to be fit. The word is that injury that he picked up against Burnley is not as serious as it may have been, but this game could come too soon. But does he play Šeško up front? Does he move Bruno Fernandes into a more advanced position? My gut tells me Šeško probably will have to make the impact from the bench again, because I think he'll like the energy of Mason Mount in this fixture.
Okay, no clean sheet for Manchester United yet this season. You'd expect City to find a way through at some point, but City haven't looked particularly good at the back. So I wonder whether or not we're in for a very entertaining
4-3.
Sunday afternoon. 4-3, you never know. Remember that Michael Owen game where they won it? Absolutely fantastic. I was commentating on that match. It was brilliant.